I'll lead off with saying that, like, the Diablo 3 thing that happened.
Yeah,
I could talk a little Diablo.
All right. Yeah, about how
you're not gonna like what I have to say.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I will. Okay.
Well, I'll put you.
Let's
on
talk
blast.
some Diablo.
Let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode number 58. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey everybody.
And John Hines.
Hey there.
And we're back as always to talk about some video games. Yes, and I know I've been just still plugging away, dipping into that itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality. There are just so many games I've had a hard time even focusing on what to play. But what have you guys all been playing? Randall, what have you been dipping into this week before we get into like the meatier stuff that we've really been spending time with this week?
Totally. So Tina and I can never quite leave Diablo 3 alone. So we jumped back into Diablo 3 because we were feeling it a night or two ago. And we beat it for a second time, this time on Switch. Yeah. So I was playing as the Necromancer this time, and he's pretty broody.
That's what I've been playing at
nice.
Most recent time through.
I know,
we just recently sunk up online again with I don't think that's how you say that, sunk up online, but whatever. John and I and the rest of the guys in Boss Fight sunk up and played. So I'm just going to keep saying it. We sunk up and played some Diablo 3 online as well not too long ago. So
nice. So playing on Switch, Necromancer was a DLC character from one of the expansions, Reaper of Souls, that actually wasn't even available the first time that Tina and I beat this when we played on PlayStation 4. But I'm like, want to own this forever. Let's buy the cartridge, of course, have it on Switch. And just played through it again. Didn't realize we were even that close to the end. But I think she's playing a monk class and her character is hardcore, hits a lot harder than my Necromancer does. But yeah, we managed to. Is
that what my character? I'm playing as a monk, right?
And I am by
far the weakest
opposite.
in the.
We'll get
and
into,
I'm also having the complete opposite.
We'll put that
experience
on
as Randall. But yeah, continue on. Continue on. Keep praising this game before I take a big dump on it.
Oh, we'll fight, Kevin. That's fine. Let's go.
It'll be 2-1.
Please.
But yeah, it's always satisfying to see credits. I've talked this game ad nauseum. John could probably tell you the statistics of the 8 million times that I've talked about Diablo 3. So. I enjoy it. I'm pretty positive that despite this being Act 5 credits, that there's even more content available there for us.
Oh, yeah.
I think they kind of hinted as much. So, and I don't think we did that the first time around either, actually played the stuff afterwards. So this will finally be the opportunity to do that with characters we really like.
From what I understand and what our friend and drummer in Boss Fight tells us is that the main meat of the game is post campaign.
Yeah.
After you,
that's when it starts doing randomly generated dungeons, just and increasingly difficulty that just maps to your character level.
Yes.
It's all randomly generated, and you start doing so in the campaign. Have you gotten to Paragon and that mechanic?
Yes.
Okay, so you still get that in the campaign.
Yes. Yeah, we leveled past whatever level you needed to get to start those Paragon points in those 4 quadrants, and we've been leveling those up and maximizing all of the armor and starting to get a lot more of those armor sets that are green highlighted, so that's a lot of fun when you get more pieces of the same armor set, and then they kind of start building on each other and make each other stronger the more you get and have equipped on your character at a given time. So I'm excited to hear that there's even more because, we're going to obviously continue on because it's a really good game. What do you got to say, Kevin?
I just don't get it, man. We've probably played 4 times, John, with the band, 4 or 5, 3, 4 or 5 times. And I don't know. Maybe I just can't focus, or maybe it's just that I'm enjoying hanging out because I do enjoy just playing and hanging out with hanging out on Skype and stuff. But I don't know. There's too many. I don't even bother with the menus. I mean, I do bother, but there's too much. there's just too much menu. I shouldn't say don't bother, but like you go to the blacksmith or you go to the craftsman or whatever they're called, and they just have so much shit, and then you can attach gems to that shit, and then you gotta level up the blacksmith. You gotta level up.
Attach them.
Like Randall and I are like, yes, you keep listing good things about this game.
Yeah, so I guess it's just a matter of preference, but there's no way in hell, no pun intended, that I would ever play this game by myself. Just
you
no
have
way.
to find the love of the minutiae, Kevin.
Also,
I love minutiae, but I also love having fun when I play games, and I don't really have fun unless I'm hanging out with my friends while I do it.
So
have
there
you
was
ever
another
heard me
issue.
say that this game is a solo game? No, it's not.
That's true, but I'm not having fun playing with I'm having fun hanging out with my friends, but I'm not having fun at all playing this game at all.
No. Okay, so there was another issue that Kevin hasn't brought up, where like a thing that we do, like just kind of like for fun, and it also is just like hilarious every time we do it, is we compare the stats of each of our characters.
Sure.
And like most of us like will like, oh yeah, like one of us will be like really good at like one stat, and like just like
usually Mikey,
like just like factors of 10 like in like better than everyone else. But then every time that like Kevin would read his would be like thousands lower than all of ours. And like we're all the same level. We haven't played separately. We haven't gotten like farmed for new equipment. And like Mikey and I are still convinced that you are just using broken equipment, that you haven't repaired anything.
I think that did happen last time for sure. The last time we played that for sure happened. Like, because once I re-equipped and got
wearing nothing.
Yeah, I was down to my robes.
You didn't have anything equipped.
I was in my monk robes, but
you're not playing this video game, Kevin.
I don't know. It's not for me. I'm not going to keep bashing it.
You're
but
not
it's
even
just
engaging
not
in it.
No, I am engaging in it. There's just too much to engage in for me personally. That's all I'm saying. I'm happy that other people like it, but it just this type of game is not for me. Dungeon crawling is not for me.
All right, that's fair.
That's fine. Kevin, what is something that you will play?
Well, one thing that I feel like an idiot because I brought up a game last week called Six Match that I was kind of trying to sell Randall on. It's like a match 3 puzzle game with a lot of interesting mechanics. And I kind of mentioned, I botched the setup on I was trying to set it up for a gamepad. Yeah. And like I recommended just go into it straight with the keyboard. But I actually, once I kind of figured out, so like one of the things that was confusing to me is like one of the keys you could set like as an option in the control settings was help. And I figured that was just like going to take me, like some of these games actually take you like to the itch.io page, or like it'll like launch a website when you're playing on the computer.
Yeah.
Or we'll take, I figured it was just some kind of like help screen, but that's actually like you have up to 6 uses of this help per round. And you get to use that. If you can make a move and you use help, it will actually show like a path that you can take that will allow you to make a combo. And if you have no path to make a combo, it'll drop a bomb that when you swap with that bomb, it'll blow up everything in the row and column next to it, other than it'll stop like your dice. And again, you're like kind of moving a die around the board. I talked about this last week, and I'm not going to go too into it, but there's just so many more mechanics. And then on top of that, you're matching these coins, like you're getting these match 3 combos, and those are spawning these cards on the bottom of the screen. And the way I found this out is by going on the itch.io page I was like, I got to figure out like, what am I missing on the like setup of this game? And like, I just need to know more because it doesn't really tell you anything. But yeah, you get like a card on the bottom of the screen, and then by matching different color combos, you're actually getting poker hands on the bottom of the screen, and you're getting like a full house and getting bonus coins for that, or getting like match 2 or match 3 or 3 of a kind. Wow! By like getting different color, like I have 3 reds, so I got 3 of a kind, and then there'll be like blocks that'll be like a red block or a red coin that is surrounded by a block that will, like, when you push against it, you'll actually move the whole row and it'll like screen wrap around.
Nice.
So there's just a ton of really cool mechanics that I didn't even mention. I have figured out a way with a little setup to get the controller working and everything.
Nice.
But on top of that, playing with the keyboard is definitely just the way to go if you just don't want to finick with the, or don't want to mess with the settings and stuff.
Right.
It works right off the bat. And definitely just check the developer. The developer's name is Steed. Spelled with 2 3s instead of 2 E's.
Okay.
But they're, or at least, we'll put a link to their itch.io page. But yeah, they're just highly recommend like taking a look at like the rules, because that's where I learned about the poker hands and where I learned about like what these skulls and what different like items do and stuff. So
that's wild.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
It's really
sounds like
cool.
a dual screen experience or something. Like I want them to put it on like 3DS or something. Like
so it actually. So the thing is, it saves on the description too. It says, "Please take your time." It says a game of this can take weeks. So like the point of this is like to progress as far as you can and keep getting like it keeps getting harder. Like these new blocks get introduced as you progress, and I think there's like. I don't know if there's like levels, but it does like have a sense of progression to it, like the skulls and the different like blocks you can push the whole column or the whole row that gets introduced as you get further into the game. So
right,
it's really interesting. Yeah, it's just definitely recommended highly. Again, I just wanted to like kind of briefly be like, hey, I didn't fully figure this out, and now that I know what's going on, it's just even more impressive.
Yes, now you can control it properly, so that's always nice.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know that now that we're getting into more of like the meat of the episode here, I know that you both have been spending some more time with Timespinner, which we talked about briefly a couple weeks ago, you and I, Randall, and we forgot to mention like 2 huge mechanics in the game. And then John is in full DJ mode and just plowed through this game. And took a week off to just beat Timespinner. No, John was definitely busy last week, but with other things other than Timespinner. But yeah. What have you guys been thinking of this game?
Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts on the, but Randall, you want to?
Yeah, why don't we start with the mechanics that we just totally left off the table?
Well, I should start. I'll get my shame out of the way. So when I talked about this game last, I said I was stuck, and I couldn't figure out why I was stuck, and I was stuck because I'm stupid. So I went back to this game with a fresh brain, and I realized. Like, why can't I get past this area? Like, I see this, shiny cog thing that I need to get, but it's over this, like, gap, but I don't have a double jump or anything. And I kept trying to figure out, how can I get over there? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I've looked everywhere 1,000,000 times. And granted, I'm going back and forth. I'm still leveling up my character by fighting the guys that are respawning over and over again, and that's fine. But then I realized, like, I went into one of the little places where you can kind of teleport around, those blue rooms, I think they are. And then I realized up at the top there was an L and R. And I'm like, I'm so stupid. Like, there's 2 separate maps. Like, the game told me this.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was playing it so disjointedly that I had forgotten that there was like 2 separate like map areas, and hence the time spinning. And like.
Yes, hence, so we didn't mention that. We didn't mention that you can freeze time with like you have like kind of like an hourglass up at the top of the screen.
A game that
really
is
cool,
premised on time travel.
Yep.
Yeah. And we didn't even really talk about all like the orb leveling and the orb, just like much of the
Familiar
orb mechanics
leveling.
other than we briefly touched on it. But I know John was just like, you guys didn't even talk about the orbs. But John, you saw this game through. What are your like overall take and impressions and stuff?
So yeah, like I it was on my radar after you guys talked about it, because I'm always a sucker for a like handheld era Castlevania game.
Yes.
So like I've mentioned it before on the podcast. One of my favorite games of all time is Castlevania Circle of the Moon. And that basically went through the entire DS series all the way up through Order of Ecclesia, which is what I think is a very similar game to this. Especially like how in Order of Ecclesia, like you don't really have weapons, you have glyphs, and you use the glyphs to summon weapons. So you'll have one where like you will just like basically summon a blade in front of you or summon a hammer in front of you, and that's literally exactly the same thing you're doing with like the iron like orb or that, and like they all have like leveling mechanics where the more enemies you kill with an orb, like the higher level it is, the more damage it'll do. And then in addition to that, like you'll meet an alchemist at some point in the game, and then you get to fuse those orbs that are primarily weapons into either a ring, which then gives all the orbs a passive ability, or into a necklace, which then gives you that like that charge ability that on the A button. So
I gotta fire this game back up.
It's so good. Like when you start off, you just have those 2 blue orbs, and like then you have basically the blue orb like charge ability, which is like most of the orbs are like if they go a little bit ahead of you, but they're not projectiles. Like it's just basically the like width of a melee attack. So like the charge ability is usually what you actually have in terms of a passive attack or a
ranged attack or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, like there's just so much of the game that is like, as Randall was saying, like it's based around this clan of like time warriors, which go through and like try to, every time that there's like an attack on their clan that like from this other civilization that wants to like gain control of their ability to time travel, they always like send someone through the time portal back in time to try to prevent it, or at least make it last a little bit longer than the last time and warn them. But in doing so, like they erase their past and like they don't exist, so they have to come back and basically reintroduce themselves, so that they're like, even though they grew up with everyone, they're a stranger. So like there's a lot of,
it's a cool
like,
concept.
It's a fairly decent and like it's always a difficult sci-fi trope to introduce like time travel in a story, and I honestly think that Timespinner does it a really like comprehensive way and doesn't really have too many plot holes. Even like when I beat the game and I started a new game plus, and like I was like going through the story again like with fresh eyes, and I was like, yeah, they did really like kind of cover their tracks and make sure that it all worked from like the get-go.
Right,
so,
without being too crazy wordy either, honestly. I think they had a good balance there.
It kicks like the game kicks off with a bang in the sense that I was invested in what was going on, and like I wanted to know what happens. Again, I haven't played much more since last time we talked, or any more really since last time we talked about it. But like I was definitely like I just always bounce around with games, but I was impressed with like the opening, and like you said, not overly wordy. Like I was into the gameplay pretty quick for an action RPG. So
yeah. And Randall mentioned it last time that like it does a lot of like storytelling through lore. Like you'll collect fragments of memories from like one character. You'll collect like codex, or like you'll download them to your tablet, because as you're like traveling through time, like there's a millennium between the two like eras that you're going through. So there is like kind of a magic like high fantasy area, like that's the past, and then the present is the sci-fi like just an area. And like they really try to like, you know, have like a through line with those two areas. So like, you know, the architecture or like the landscape will be similar, but there'll be, you know, centuries or a millennia difference between the two of technology. And like it's a really well thought out world. And like I think that the story itself is actually a pretty strong point. I will say that like I think that the early character interactions are a lot stronger than they are at near the end. Like I remember like honestly laughing out loud at like one of the interactions in the past, and like never again for the rest of it. Like it's it's not uneven. It's just like I think has its emotional hits like pretty early on for me. And like I also like at the same time I don't want to be overly critical of the game, because like when I'm comparing it to Castlevania games in my head, and by no stretch of the imagination are like those games have good stories. Like, let
alone the budget that those Castlevania games probably had compared to this game.
Absolutely. And like I would say like that's kind of another issue I have with the game, is that I do think it's a little short, and I think that like it doesn't like skimp out on the mechanics, and like especially like when it's giving you all these orbs and a variety of ways that you can level them up, it doesn't really have enough game for you to use them all. Like I could see that. I went through the game and basically like didn't use half of them because I had a setup that worked and I didn't feel the need to experiment. And like if the game was just longer, or if there were more enemy types that like you were super weak against like a specific type of orb, like that like you needed to do that. But at the same time, it's an incredibly ambitious game, and I think it does it really well, like overall. And obviously, because like I sat down, beat it, and didn't play anything else while I was doing that.
You ripped through that game, man.
I haven't had that experience in a long time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I need to go back to that game, and I need to go back to, I was playing before that Itch.io bundle came out. I started playing a bunch of, I think I'm about 50% through Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, which I've not been super grabbed by any of those games in the past. I like the art style, I like the mechanics, but for whatever, I've enjoyed a little bit. But they've never sucked me in. But this one I really have been loving. But
that's good to hear, because I kind of feel the same with Shantae, despite I know both of us being pretty big into those Wonder Boy later games that are obviously of a very similar vein.
This one feels like I'm glad you brought that up, because it feels so much more like not authentic to that experience, but like it. Yeah, it's more. I'll get into it when I get back into that game eventually, because it's really fun and I'm really loving it.
Yeah,
and it seems like Way Forward most of the time hits the mark, but every once in a while they're kind of a little off their mark, I guess. But yeah, this one is like really, really fun, especially if you've maybe bounced off the Shantae games in the past.
Right,
definitely recommend checking that out. But did you guys have anything more to add on Timespinner or Randall? Anything more to add on that?
Oh, just that, like I was saying before, that I put the cartridge back in the box, and it is back out of the box in the Switch system because of John. So thank you, John. I will be playing more Timespinner. Absolutely. I'm
glad to help.
Nice. Well, believe it or not, yes. Again, to bring up that Itch.io bundle again for racial justice and equality, I have actually not turned on my Switch since that bundle came out.
That's impressive.
And that is crazy, because I am like, I usually fire up my Switch first thing in the morning, check the eShop. Oh, what games do I want on sale? And again, I haven't really been buying anything. I don't have a steady income coming in. Just unemployment, and like, I'm just not trying to spend money on extra things, especially with everything going on right now.
Right.
It just feels kind of, excessive or whatever. It just doesn't seem appropriate. But yeah, since I picked up this Itch.io bundle, I started playing a bunch of games on there. And I started playing, I know last week I talked about a game called Spring Falls, which was a puzzle game that you play strictly with the mouse.
Yeah.
And that's from Sparse Game Dev. I think I forgot to mention that last week. But one of the games that I've also been playing that controls strictly with the mouse is a game called Gun Rounds. And this is it's a roguelike, super pixelated. It kind of has like a Downwell style, like a bunch of different palettes you can unlock as you progress through the game. But it's got like just a few colors, like 3 or 4 colors in the palette. And the initial one is kind of like a red and like an off-white beige. But basically, there'll be like enemies that spawn on the screen. And again, you're controlling everything with the mouse, and you're going to click on the screen. You start out with 2 different abilities, kind of like a regular like pistol shot, and then some random other shot that you can click. And then you're going to click. There'll be 3 or 4 enemies kind of floating at the top of the screen, or not floating, but moving in like a specific movement pattern in real time. And then you have to kind of click and point, like pick a cursor spot on the screen, and then you'll click one of your 2 abilities, and then it will fire, like there'll be like an animation screen. So you kind of have to, there's a little bit of timing going on. It's got a lot of Paper Mario DNA actually, because you're timing your attacks. Like you really have to aim and time those attacks like in real time, but also when enemies fire shots back at you or they attack you, you have like kind of like this ring radius around you, and you can click on the screen at any point in time. And if the enemy's projectile is within that ring, it's like pretty close to your character, you actually absorb that, and it becomes ammo that replenishes your weapons.
How about that? Nice.
And then if you like, there's other things you can do that like replenish HP as well.
Nice.
You can you can clear those projectiles when they're outside of your ring, and all it will do is clear them. You don't pick anything up. And you can just again, if you time it perfectly, you don't take any damage. And it's like this action RPG. I don't know. It's the way it controls. And this is from Blabberf is the name of the developer.
Okay.
I'll have links to and I started doing this video series called 15 Minutes of Game, because I can't help myself with a little dad joke or a pun. But yeah, I'm just kind of trying to highlight a bunch of games in this itch.io bundle. And this is one of the ones I checked out. And it's just so... and by the way, with these videos, you're not supposed to watch the whole thing. They're way longer than 15 minutes. And it's just kind of, the whole thing is meant for you to the whole thing is meant, I'm trying to get the preamble down, but I just want to basically say, watch the video until you either decide you want to play this game or you don't, and then stop watching the video and then just go play the game. I don't want you to watch the freaking video. I want you to play these games. So, this game is just really cool. There's tons of different weapons. I got this lightning bolt attack that's kind of more random, but really powerful. I played 10, 12, 15 rounds or so. Yeah. And, still was getting new buffs, new weapons, new power-ups that I hadn't seen before. It was just constantly surprising me. Again, I'm a sucker for these different palette changes and stuff like that. It just keeps a game that, can seem, again, it's seeming different to me every time because I'm getting all these new weapons, but and it's not something like Dead Cells where you're having to collect things and spend them to unlock them. It's just throwing new stuff at me all the time, That's great. You're just having to collect stuff to unlock the new palettes, but that's it. So, really been loving this game. Highly recommend it. But another game that I also was playing a ton of, also from the itch.io bundle, is 10S, and this is actually the most recent video I did in that series as well. And this is a bullet hell roguelike tennis game.
Okay.
And I know that sounds kind of crazy.
Oh,
it has all kinds of different...
the name. You've been saying this name, and
it's the number 10. Yeah, the number 10 and the letter S.
Yeah, that's good.
And it is it's really cool. You control this character and you have all kinds of crazy camera settings. You can zoom it out to the point where you actually can't even see. It seems like it has no limits. You can just zoom it back or zoom in as far as you want. You have a frame of view perspective that you can change. You can zoom in to the point where you're almost in a first person perspective or right over the shoulder almost,
Okay.
But you can tweak it to how you like it, but you can swap around the palette so there's just some random stuff. But anyways, you basically, there's enemies on one side of the court. It plays almost more like racquetball because they kind of bounce off the walls as well.
What kind of perspective are we talking about here right off the bat?
It's a third person. It's very arcadey.
Okay.
And it's very downwelly as well. As far as there's just 4 colors. It's 3D, but chunky pixel sprites within
Sounds
a 3D
awesome.
plane.
Yeah.
And you're so the enemies will start out, and you basically have to, you start out with one orb or tennis ball that you can serve up, and you can serve that up at the enemies, and you're trying to hit the enemies with those orbs.
Yeah.
And the enemies will be shooting 3 different types of projectiles. One that you can swipe your tennis racket at and just swipe them away and turn them into a little puff of smoke.
Yeah.
One that's kind of a darker color, and you can hit those, and those actually will become a new orb that you can then keep attacking enemies with if you time it right. All of these will do damage to you if you don't time it right. So and there's also... Go ahead, John.
So is it kind of like Strikey Sisters, or...
Yeah, very similar to that, actually.
Okay.
Like you're not trying to break any blocks or anything, but yeah, the same perspective where you have the enemies are up top and you're down on the bottom of the screen.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's like Breakout essentially,
Ooh.
But yeah, you're trying to you can see the enemy's health bar and stuff, and there's boss fights after 3. It looks like there's only 5 levels or so where there's each level consists of 3 sets, and you can start at different levels once you unlock them. But again, it has this roguelike quality where after you beat each wave of enemies, you get to pick either a heart, extra health. And it's not just a recover. You start with 3 health, but you can if you didn't take any damage and you pick that up, you'll have 4 health.
Nice.
But you also get to pick between 2 random buffs as well, which will be okay, now you have that 1 orb that you start with, but now you can hold a second orb.
Nice.
And you'll always start with just 1, but they fill up over time. So there's a little timer that fills up. You can see them filling up in the top right of the screen. And it's just so well polished and thought out. It's got a really great vibey, not chiptune soundtrack, but like just vibey, chill soundtrack. And it's like, it's not a mindless game, but it's a really like reflexive game. You know, everything you're doing, you're adapting to the buffs you're getting, or like, oh, I need the health, I need to bypass the buff on this particular round, or the enemies you're coming up. And it does, like the bullets, like when you start the rounds, it can actually be a little bit tedious when there's only one enemy on the screen to like finally clear that last enemy.
Sure.
That's
Very
the only
breakout.
slight complaint.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. I think we even complained about that with Strikey Sisters too. But yeah, it is such a cool game. It's got so much style. The developer on this one is Ouch with a W instead of a U.
Okay.
Nice.
And I really, really like this game a ton. Like I kind of picked it up. Like it's just got that arcadey, I don't know, pick up and play vibe. You do have to kind of finick with the controllers, with the control setup, but again, playing it with a gamepad, you just kind of go through you got to use a keyboard to like get it going. But again, I'm just new to PC gaming, so I'm just a noob. But yeah, 10S, highly recommended. And again, please support these developers that donated their work to the Itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality. I know you can leave tips on Itch.io, or just check out their other work. You know, you can pick some of that stuff up if they have other projects as well.
Right.
Or follow their work in the future, because there's really interesting, like, again, I follow indie game stuff and video games pretty closely.
Right.
And both the games I mentioned today were games that I had never heard of ever in my life. I think I had maybe seen a screenshot of 10S. Like, it looked sort of familiar to me in some way, but like definitely never, like, it wasn't on my radar of something, you know, I was looking to play. It was just the first game that came up alphabetically on the list. So I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll check this out. This looks kind of interesting. So, and really cool. And again, all the palette swapping that you can do is really cool. There's like the randomize button, and I found one that I really liked. I actually probably won't change it. It's like a greenish color. Yeah, just fantastic game. Again, if you picked up this bundle, there were over 1 million people that picked it up. So there's a good chance if you're listening that you have this access to this game. So please check it out.
I do.
So,
I want to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have access to it for that
yeah.
matter. So
I keep every time that you like mention a game from this, is like, oh, I should pick that up. And it's like, oh, I have it.
I should install that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I've been having a blast. But anything else you guys wanted to talk about this week before we wrap things up, or?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for tuning in. And as always, you know, you can find our stuff on pursuingpixels.com. And at the bottom, I'm just going to keep the post-amble.
Post-amble, yes.
Not the preamble, but the post-amble short. And just check out the episode description. We have the timestamps in the episode. I should probably say this at the beginning, but we have all the links to like Discord, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, anything like that. So, yeah, just check out the episode description, and we'll catch you next Monday. Hope everybody's doing well, staying safe, taking care, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye-bye.
See ya. We covered like 5 games, at least 6, maybe.
Yeah, maybe 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some early pursuing pixels.
Yeah.
Except those were like an hour and a half long.
Yeah,
those are an hour and a half, like just fucking marathons.
Why? I don't know.